My girlfriend suggested that we had to break up just because I had no any job at all, therefore I could not be able to cater for her needs. But after 2 weeks of thorough search of the job, God opened the doors for me and I was employed as a security guard to one of the richest tycoon in town. I could not hesitate to inform my ex now over the matter, and I begged her back, but all were in vain. She resisted that at all costs, saying she had already moved on. She was in love with a rich guy now. Sincerely speaking, I was not happy for that, since we had a lot of plans for ourselves, but all of them just ended like that. But since I was now committed to my new job, I was not that much depressed, despite even my boss gave me a hope. I just observed that even with all his riches, he was still not married, though he was a bit older than me. After some few months, he had a party in his home, and this party was all about introduce of his fiancé to his family and friends. The compound was fully occupied. When my boss arrived with his fiancé for introduction, I couldn't even believe my eyes. It was my ex-girlfriend, Rachel. I had to make that by whatever cost. I'll be around that vicinity to staring at her beauty. She was more beautiful than ever. I could not access her through phone cause she had blocked me, and I had no better phone to search her on the online platforms. I didn't get even a little opportunity to get close to her, though she saw me very well and behaved like she saw nobody familiar. Time flew, and here the wedding day just arrived. It was a colorful one, to truly speak. Anyone could admire that kind of a wedding. She was now officially in that family, but she has no job. She was just a housewife. What gave me a lot of pain is to see her kiss my booze every morning while he got into the car for job. It was my boss's norm of not coming home, often due to job duties. Whenever she was aware of that, she could invite me inside for dinner while she was dressed so sexy. She could even start storying of our relationship there before. I could always stop her from that, since I feared losing my job a lot. One day I fall into her trap. This day I found myself falling into a trap. I saw it coming, but the situation couldn't allow me to escape it. This fine evening, she was aware that her husband had gone for a business trip for the whole week. So she went and cooked my favorite meal, and she also bought an alcoholic drink that I liked the most. She understood how that drink always turned me on. I could see her adding me glass after glass. I couldn't be able to resist any longer, and unfortunately I was all driven drunk. I could see her face and forget that we were in our boss's house. Making matters worse, she was also drank, again more than me. I can't tell whether she faked, but I observed that. She told me to help her get to the bedroom. She couldn't let me go. She suggested that it could be better if we spent a night in that room. At first I was not agreeing with her, but she assured me that her husband was away for a whole week and nobody could be a witness of that. Sincerely speaking, I was in the moods for that, having missed her as my lady for that long. We spent the night together in that condition, both of us being drunkards. She was behaving like she was in need of that more than me, despite she had a husband. I could wonder to myself whether whose fault could it be, my boss's or hers. I enjoyed that night with what I had missed for so long again, this time being branded by my boss. Early in the morning, in my right senses, I was so much disgusted by what we had done, but to her is like nothing happened. You behave like you did not enjoy? Stop kidding me. She smiled as she pushed the drawer and handed a bunch of notes to me. I couldn't resist that, but before I could take the money, she said, "I will always be giving you this, but under one condition." I wondered what it could be. She suggested that we could be doing as we did that night whenever my boss was away. I agreed, but in a disbelief though. The next night it was like that, but this time we were not drunk, and it was not as guilty as the first time. Darling, I tell you, no one will know about this. All we needed in our relationship is money, and now my husband gives me lots, but I love you a lot, you know about that, she said while we were in bed. I was so much confused by that statement up to an extent that I couldn't make any comment about it. For that whole week while my boss away, we turned his house into our home. Rachel could spend the whole day with me in the house totally naked. She was treating me this time in a better way than there before. Boss, we pretended like nothing happened while he was away. Rachel could behave harshly on me before the incident of that week, but this time she was getting it hard to be harsh on me again. I had to talk to her not to treat me nice like she has never done, cause my boss could have noticed something fishy. The next week, Rachel broke the news to me that she was pregnant. I didn't hesitate to advise her to inform my boss about that. Indeed, my boss was so happy that Sydney was going to be a dad. I was so confused whether the baby could be mine as Rachel insisted to me. See, Rachel, your husband will not know that the child is not his. Just tell him you are pregnant, and that's final. That's all I could tell her. During the day, while my boss was at work, she could not leave at my workstation at the gate. All she wanted is to be with me all alone. My boss saw it well to employ a house help to assist her. She was not happy though, since she thought to herself that a house help may lead to the spread of the rumors. But the girl who was employed was young and intelligent in her work. She was not interested in anyone's business. She could see us together and wonder whether Rachel was my boss the way she reacted harshly towards her. But she came to like me a lot because I usually told Rachel not to react harshly towards her. I want to push my husband to put me as the next of kin, Rachel said to me. I had nothing to comment about that. That might save me in case he finds out that the child is not his, she added. Always that statement left some guilty looks on my face. Rachel was ever jealous to our house help Anita just because we as workers used to sleep in the same house, but different rooms, so she thought we might easily fall in love. I was so much determined to know the story of Anita's life because I saw her being young to do those kind of jobs and being so much humble. It looked like she was from a humble background because she couldn't prepare some meals or eat them at all cause she was not familiar with them. But since our boss was an understanding man, he kept her working while she attended catering classes over the same. So one evening, Anita had prepared a meal and served it to me. We had never been talking that much apart from greetings, and I decided this day to ask her about her background. She hesitated for a moment and dragged a chair near me and began to shed tears before even narrating her story. As she had started, Rachel entered into our room, provoking Anita for her delay. Again, this time being so close to me drove out her jealousy instincts that sent her to give Anita a hot blow of slap. I couldn't withstand to see that happen before me. I had to stop her. While holding and dragging her, she shouted at me saying she was our boss and she could even fire the two of us. Suddenly I had our boss's car hooting at the gate. On the arrival of my boss, everyone had faked the facial expressions so that he couldn't tell what happened. Well, a day well spent, my boss asked. Yeah, Anita replied while taking his bag into the living room. But wait a minute, why are you nose bleeding? Is everything ok? My boss went on. Anita had not even realized that she had been nose bleeding all this time. Yuck. I think it's just a normal nose bleeding, she answered in a disbelief while touching her nose to confirm that as she put down the bag. I went ahead to help her with taking the bag into the living room. Wait a minute, what's that mark on your face? Did anyone just try to fight you? My boss asked. No sir. I'm allergic to some foods, that's why, she answered, covering the mistakes of Rachel. Oh, that might be the reason your nose bleeding. I could hear my boss say that. All this time as they were outside talking, Rachel was standing at the window peeping to see them when I entered the living room. You, take this money and go to the nearest chemist. Get her the painkillers and Panadol before she could visit hospital tomorrow morning. He ordered me. I was so much impressed by Anita's response, how she didn't want to blow anything to the boss. She never reported to him how Rachel treated her badly. On my return from the chemist, I found her already. She had retired to her bed that early. My boss suggested that she took a rest. So I took water and the drugs to her. Anita, I want to say I'm sorry whatever that happened, I said to her. She looked at me and nodded her head in agreement. I left into the living and found food already served by Rachel. Good luck, Anita had already cooked. I don't think Rachel could have. So I took both my share and Anita's and left to our house. I seated beside Anita as we took the meal. She was telling me funny stories. I didn't want to shatter her mood again by asking her of the life story she had encountered, since from the reaction she had on the past few hours could tell it was going to be a sad one. After having put everything in place, I also retired to bed, but before I could even fall asleep, I had a knock on the door. It was accompanied by Anita's voice. I let her in. "I just came to thank you for all that you have done for me. May God bless you." Before she could even continue further, I told her that everything was all right. I didn't want her statements to make me shed tears. "But please, I have to ask you a favor," she continued. "Wow, a favor? Go on, Anita," I said to her. "Please speak to Rachel not to be this harsh on me. I might be forced to resign if this continued, but then my family, my mother depends on me." She was almost shedding tears again. "No, I can't let that happen, Anita. Actually, I was thinking of warning her, though I have done it severally, but don't worry. I know what to do. You just get back to sleep. I'll handle that tomorrow." I comforted her and she went back to her room. The following day, early in the morning, while still in my room, I could hear Anita preparing herself for the day's work. I was wondering why she decided so, because she was not feeling well. I had to approach her inside the room to hear her whereabouts. "Morning, Anita. Are you getting better?" I asked her. She looked at me as if she wasn't aware of what happened that last night. "Morning too. Was I sick?" She questioned me in a disbelief. "Both of us are aware of what happened. I was not sick and I have never been allergic to any food," she continued. "Anita, you know our boss is someone who's very much observant. He might start to suspect you in the wrong way." I urged her. "So what am I going to do? Tell me please," she insisted. "Well, just get back into your bed and sleep. I'll get to kitchen and help you prepare breakfast for the boss. He is about to leave for work. He is aware that you're sick and he is an understanding man too," I told her. She did exactly as I said, though she didn't like that. On getting to kitchen, I found my boss already up preparing for his breakfast. We exchanged the greetings as he asked about Anita's whereabouts. By that time, Rachel was in her room, so I went on and informed him that she was doing well and soon she will fully recover. I helped my boss to prepare the breakfast as he went to his room to get dressed for the job. He came into the living room together with Rachel. I could tell from Rachel's eyes that the crisis between the three of us was going to get though as soon as the boss leaves. "Morning, ma'am." I said greetings to Rachel, but she didn't answer me. I had to pretend as if nothing happened. "Can't you even answer a common greeting?" My wife, these are humans too," my boss's voice roared. "Oh, I didn't hear that. Morning too. But honey, did you just yell at me because of that? I have a lot in my mind this morning and I was lost in thoughts. I didn't hear that." She replied back. "Oh, then don't be that inactive this very early in the morning. That was just for making you active." My boss could answer her jokingly as he touched her dimples. "Anita? And where is Anita?" Rachel asked, but no one answered. "Ben, I'm asking you." Her voice frightened me. For a moment, "Yes, ma'am. She is feeling unwell since yesterday evening," I replied. Her voice took me to those days there back in our relationship, the way she used to quarrel just because I was unemployed. I left the living room immediately as I went to take care of Bosco, our security dog. I gave him food and then locked him in his kennel. My boss was ready to leave for job immediately after I finished wiping his car. She was accompanied by Rachel as usual. She always walked him out of the house right to the car and gave him a hug, sometimes a kiss. "Take this money, Ben. Make sure Anita gets medical attention today," my boss said as he gave me the money. "Oh, sir," I replied. Rachel's eyes couldn't communicate that well, as I observed. I ran out of her sight to open the gate for my boss. As he drove away, Rachel was still standing outside looking at me in a disgusting look on her face. That couldn't scare me even for a single moment as long as the boss was not around. "We have to share some talks today, very important talks," I told her. "If it's about Anita, forget about it," she rudely answered. "It's about an innocent poor girl, Anita, and we have to talk about it today, whether you like it or not," I insisted. She broke into an awkward loud laughter. "See who is commanding me now? Who are you in this house now?" she asked. That question gave my anger. "I am the father." I couldn't like to finish that statement. It made her keep quiet. I headed into Anita's room to get her prepared for medication. By that time, I got into my room as well to get prepared. All that was running through my mind was how to convince Rachel to stop mistreating the innocent Anita. After a couple of minutes, I headed into kitchen and served breakfast. I handed Rachel her share and took my share and Anita's to our house. Rachel looked at me with strong eyes without uttering a single word. I was seated beside Anita in her bed as we took our breakfast meal. "You mean you can cook this?" she asked. "Yeah, just tea and ordinary buns. Anyone can cook that for real," I answered her. "Wow, that sounds nice." For me, it was different. In my first lesson at a catering school I am always attending, I was told to cook this, she said. "Oh, you've reminded me. Talking of your catering classes, when is today?" I asked her. "Oh yeah, you're right, it's on Sunday. I'll be having a class at the evening, and I won't miss that out," she replied. "I see it good. If you could prepare, I'd drop you there direct as we finish from the chemist. How about that?" I asked her. "Yeah, that sounds well. It will save time," she answered. She was arranging her catering equipment as I went to turn on the family car that I used to drive whenever being sent to anywhere. We were going to use it. As soon as Rachel heard the sound of a starting car, he got out as Anita was accompanying me in the car. "Good morning, ma'am." Anita greeted her. "Greetings are not important as at now. Make sure the two of you gets back in time. There are a lot of work to be done inside," Rachel replied. "Och, ma'am," I could hear Anita's voice. I got out of the car immediately. "You're aware that Anita has a class in the evening, right? I will drop her there immediately we finish from hospital. Good day, Rachel." I drove away without giving her time to reply me anymore. She stood right there and watched us as we drove out. "I'm even terrified that man can even fire me," Anita said. "None of you even try to imagine about I know what to do. I won't see that happen," I replied her. "I heard the boss speak to her boss yesterday in the morning that mother was visiting us. She is happy for his wife being pregnant as she will be happy to take care of her until she delivers," Anita informed me. I'm aware of that. Maybe she will inform me later," I answered her. Soon we were in the chemist. She was given medical attention, though we were much aware she was not sick, but she faked she had a headache the previous night. As we drove back, it was still early to drop her to attend the class. I saw it as an opportunity to know her life story. I parked the car along the roadside. "Anita, since it's too early to drop you for classes, we can relax a bit here. What about that?" I asked her. "Yeah, sure. Having said that, I would like you to help me with your phone. I want to know how my mother is doing," she said. Imagine Anita had no phone at all, so I gave her my phone. She called her brother, whom they had a prolonged conversation, and the call ended. But I could tell from her face that all was not well. "Is everything okay, Anita?" I asked her. "I didn't hear you speak to your mother. What's it?" I continued. "She can't talk through the phone. If I won't know about her, I usually call my brother. He is the one taking care of him. We are only the two of us in the family. Me and my younger brother, whom I called," she'd answered. "What a life. And what about your dad?" I asked her, but I saw her tears flowing down her cheeks. "No, I never meant to hurt you, Anita." Before I could further continue, she interfered. "It's ok. Well, you just asked," she replied. I was now listening to her story. "We were born in a family that was well off, not that much wealthy, but it was my father who had a job. My mother was just a housewife. So it happened that one day my dad got an accident and he died on the spot. He never told anyone about his bank accounts except my mother, since we were young those days. When we got that terrible news, my mother couldn't withstand that. She got paralyzed and went a coma. That situation couldn't allow her to even attend the burial ceremony of our beloved dad. I was keenly listening to her story, trying hard not to shed my tears. The burial of our father was bit that easy. His brothers used our house in order to secure a loan that facilitated his burial. We were living in our own house in town, but when we were unable to pay the loan, we were forced to go back in the village. The money that remained from the burial of our dad was used to pay the bills of my mother's treatments. I was now totally confused by this story. From that day, it remained to be that we will be the ones taking care of our mother. Since I started working on people's homes to get food for my mother and my brother, we took our mother out of the hospital since the bills could be getting large, but a doctor could visit her at least once in a month. Since that day my mother got paralyzed, she lost her memory. She can't recall the back details of my dad. All she remembers is that she had a husband and 2 children. Now she can identify me and my brother. She continued, "Suddenly I heard a phone call. It was my boss calling me. He informed me that his mother was on her way home, and he also asked about Anita's medical results. I don't know how it happened, but all that time Anita had been giving me that story. I had warmly held her in my arms inside the car. Anita, the boss has called. I have to leave now cause his mother is on the way. I'll come to pick you. Just borrow anyone a phone and call me," I told her. "No, Ben, it's not far from home. I can walk," she insisted. "Ok then, take this money and get yourself a lunch." I gave her the money and immediately left. So if you love horror and supernatural fiction narrative and want a part 2, then write continue in the comments section and subscribe to our YouTube channel.